Good evening, and welcome to this week's Black Mental Health is Black Health. I'm your host, Bronwyn Lucas, and we have a distinguished guest here tonight who will introduce himself shortly. If you've never been with us before, we always start the show off with some deep breathing. Why? It allows you to clear your mind, it allows you to relax a little bit. And by the end of the day, near the end of the week, we all might need just that woosah moment. So let me tell you how we do this. I'm going to count slowly to four, and I'll say breathe in and count to four. I'll say breathe out and count to
Mhm.
four. And you'll breathe in with me very slowly. So put your hands lightly on your stomach. And as you're breathing in and out, you are going to feel your stomach expand because you're breathing in not just here, but all the way, filling those lungs up. And you'll feel it go back down when I say breathe out. So let's try it. Breathe in, two, three, four, out, two, three, four, in, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. One more in, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. Just a moment to relax and regroup. And that's something you can do. You drive around Houston, Dallas, and all these large cities, and people have road rage. So that you're not the one to have road rage, just take a few deep breaths. Allow yourself to say, okay, let me have that woosah moment. How was that deep breathing for you, Harold?
That was excellent. It was just what the doctor ordered. It helped me to relax even more. So
Awesome. And
thank you
that
for
is
that.
why we do it.
Yeah.
Well, I like to let my guests introduce themselves. So tell us who you are and something cool about you.
Well, I'm Harold Bishop. I'm a Houstonian now after 41 years of living here. I'm from Denver, Colorado. And the coolest thing I have going on is taking care of my kitty cat. His name is BB, which stands for Brother Bishop. But that is my heart right now, and he is my truly my enjoyment to have.
So, how'd you end up in Houston from Denver?
I came to Houston in '81. I was transferred here with the old Continental Airlines, which is now United Airlines. We were bought out by them, but I came here because they had closed the Denver base of Continental Airlines. And that brought me here, and I moved here in the wintertime. I left Denver in a freezing snow and arrived here, and everyone was wearing short sleeves. And that did it for me. It absolutely did.
That would do it. Yes. I've lived in cold climates before. So, yeah, Houston weather will make you a believer. It's like, I'll stay here.
Oh, absolutely. I love the warm weather. My family thinks I'm crazy and retarded to be here in all this heat, especially
Hmm.
after last week with our 100-degree weather we had. But
Yes.
that's okay. This is my preference to live in.
Well, glad you moved to the great state of Texas.
Absolutely.
Well, tonight we are talking about HIV. And, audience, I will tell you why. As I just mentioned that, you find that people think, oh, is that still around? And people still associate, oh, that's just a gay man's disease. I don't have to worry about it. And so many misnomers that people have, it still exists. We
Yes, it
don't have a
does.
cure. People are still becoming infected. And we're going to talk about why and maybe how to slow that down. So, what would you have to say to people who have those comments about HIV? It doesn't even exist anymore. Really? What would you say to someone?
I would tell people that it does exist. I am a long term survivor of living with HIV. I was infected in 1983, and due to a partner, my lover of about 7 years, he became infected and, of course, transmitted the disease to me. To the men and women of today, we have a lot of people that are still existing and living with this disease. And we need to uh, stand strong and advising and educating and informing people how to live healthy with HIV. And that's where I have been a big proponent of telling people that you can be a long term survivor. For me, it was important to follow the doctor's orders, to be compliant in taking your medication, and also to be worthy of loving yourself, to know that there is life after becoming infected with HIV. For me, it's important every night to take my HIV med. It's important not to drink and not to drug, because with that, that gives you the better T cell count. For our young people of today, we as long-term survivors, we as parents or grandparents, we have to advise and inform our kids the importance of practicing abstinence if possible. I know that's a word that a lot of people don't want to deal with, but we must in some way find it where we can tell children the importance of waiting to have sex. We know as realistic individuals that young people are going to have sex. And so with that, we have to advise them about being careful and protecting themselves. And that goes with condoms, using condoms, and whatever else that we can advise them about. I don't mean whatever else, but I mean the importance of letting them know that we must take good care of ourselves. So if you're
Mhm.
going to have sex, protect yourself. And the STDs that are around today, there are so many that are going on. When you practice abstinence, you avoid catching the STDs. You can avoid catching HIV. If you have multiple partners, you're at such a great risk of catching that disease. And with that being said, that's what I try to do now, is to educate and inform young people or even elders. I live with seniors, and that conversation does come up periodically. People want to know, well, I still need love. Yeah, you still need love and you still need to be protected.
Mhm.
I live around a lot of widow men and a lot of widow ladies. And periodically, I'll find someone brave enough to have that conversation about wanting to be loved, about wanting to be with somebody. My point is that's important to have. We all want to be loved, but it's also more important to know the realism and the reality that we must practice safe sex, even
You have
as we
said so
do.
much. I've got so many questions. Let me go back to your story.
Okay.
In the 80s, the thought of HIV was very different than it is now.
Yes, it was.
Um, how did you find out? Did your partner just say, hey, this is what's going on? Because there was a lot of denial back then. So,
Well, there was an absolute tremendous amount of denial when he became infected. He did not tell me that he had HIV. His story to me is that he had stomach cancer and
mm-mm,
he had stopped having sex with me. And I was in a very complex, confused state, wondering, why don't you love me? Why won't you touch me? Why? And he was in a dreadful sense. I don't want to say dreadful. He was in a sense of wanting to protect me without being honest. And that was really what the problem was. And I became infected in 83, and he wanted to move home in the year of 83. After he moved home is when I found out about my diagnosis. But on our way to Kansas, where he was from, um, we stopped at a restaurant, and I just said, Cleveland, tell me the truth why you're leaving and wanting to go home. What is the state and the status of your health? And finally, he admitted that he had HIV. He was so frightful. And it was back in those days, it was a fear. It was a fear. It, no, it was a death sentence.
mm-hmm,
And people were in a dreadful state of accepting you or honoring you in any way because they didn't want to be around. Even families would not let their children eat out of certain dishes. They
Right.
had their own separate dishes.
Hmm.
And so when my friend Cleveland told me of his status, I got him home and I admitted to him after we arrived there that I knew that he was HIV, but I still loved him. And he could have stayed with me for the rest of his life.
You froze. Oh my, let's hope he unfreezes in a second. Uh, let's see what happens. Let me see if I can reach him by phone and let him know he froze. Oh, probably not. He put his phone on Do Not Disturb. Let's see. Wow. Let's see. Let's give it a second. Wow. So, as you're hearing about his story, and that was in the 80s, and I want him to talk about what it looks like now. Oh, maybe he'll be able to log back in. Looks like we lost him, but hopefully he will get back in. Um, when he was talking about in the 80s, and that's when everyone had a very strong reaction to HIV and AIDS. As he said, people have separate dishes. You can come over, you can live here, but these are your dishes, these are your towels, everything is separate. Even though, let me see, trying to get him back in. Wow, it's nothing like technical difficulties. Let me see if I can connect to him and tell him to connect his mic. We'll just see. That's what happens when you're live. So hold on just a second. Hopefully we can get him right back in. We are going to try because he does have some really good points to make. I will kind of go back over some of the things I wanted to reiterate with him is that, talking to our young children, our teens, our young adults about not just HIV, but STDs. And he says, the best way to do it is abstinence. But oh, looks like he's back.
Okay,
Oh, you're
very
back.
good. Thank God. I'm so sorry. To the audience, please forgive this senior for my fingers getting in the way.
Technical issues happen.
Oh, my
You
Lord, my
know,
Lord. Okay.
so, you looked at, like you said, in 83, in the 80s, it was lots of denial. There's stories of women who found out they had HIV. And they were like,
Hmm.
well, I haven't done anything with anybody but my husband of 30 years. And,
Right.
well, your husband did,
Hmm.
And so people found out in devastating ways. Um, and there was a lot of denial. What about today? What does it look like today when people find out? Or are people still,
Well,
becoming infected?
I think it's a lot more open. There is more education and information to share with individuals who become HIV infected because of the counseling, because of the advancement in technologies, and because of the comfort zone that we're in today. People are more inclined to accept and help you rather than deny you. We're so blessed with the clinics that are around today. The Thomas Street Clinic the University of Texas. That's where I get my care from, my medical care at UT, and of course, even Harris County has a lot of programs and offers counseling to help the elders, the middle age, and the youth, to inform them, and educate them about living healthy with HIV.
Mm-hmm.
We have come a long way. Um, Back in that day, back in the 80s and the 90s, I had a fraternity of friends, and out of that fraternity, there's only 5 of my friends living, and
Wow.
there was about 30 guys in that group at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem back then was men and women in the 80s and 90s using drugs and drinking alcohol, and then also not taking their meds and being compliant to take the medication. So many of them did die. They died as drug addicts, and they died on their deathbeds living with HIV,
Wow.
unfortunately.
So, what is there a correlation in your opinion between, especially from the 80s, we'll look at that and then now, but a correlation between drug use and HIV?
Well, the importance of not using drugs, and particularly the hardcore drugs, cocaine and marijuana, that detracts and takes away from your immune system so heavily. And it interferes with the HIV meds. That's why a lot more people are surviving and living who got off drugs and got off the alcohol to save their immune systems. That's what worked for me, is not using drugs and getting off and not drinking alcohol. And of course, I can have a sip of wine or a little glass every now and then, but as a rule, I just prefer not to drink. That's my personal choice.
Mm-hmm.
And because I do want to stay healthy and I do want my T cells to remain high. I'm right now in the 500s with my T cells, and I'm undetectable with the virus. There's and that's a good thing. And I'm 72 years of age with very high T cell count and living undetectable, with the HIV virus.
That's amazing. I'm
Yes.
happy for you.
Well,
What
thank you
is the
so.
difference between AIDS and HIV? Since we're here to educate, and a lot of people still can be confused. So, what's the difference?
HIV is when you've been diagnosed with having the HIV virus. That's HIV, human immunodeficiency, and having AIDS when your T cells go below 100 or in the 90s or the 80s. You are so more susceptible to catching a chronic illness. It can be a cancer, it can be hepatitis. It can be a range. It can be the diabetes when your body immune system has gotten so weakened due to having a very low HIV. Excuse me, having a very low T cell count.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Because a lot of people kind of get that confused, understanding that there is a difference between the two,
Hmm.
or just what is it? Looking at today, right before you got cut off, we were getting ready to talk about the how does it look today, in terms of denial, and you were saying people are more accepting. Um, are people still becoming infected?
People are still becoming infected who practice or having multiple sexual partners and who are not using protection. Yes. And that is from the young people, the younger generation, from the teenagers to the 20s to 30s, as well as the more advanced. It's just so important to use condoms, unless, of course, unless you're married, unless you've been with your partner, for a long time. But yeah, HIV is still here. People are still becoming diagnosed with HIV, and this is 2023. So what do we do? We have to continue to still educate. We have to continue to inform our young people, our children, our grandchildren about safe sexual practices.
One of the things you find is that the a lot of times parents are uncomfortable talking to their children about sex or anything where they
Hmm.
say, "Oh, you can't say it." And like you said, we have to do that and be open and be educated and use this is to parents. My thing is use the real name for body parts. Let's not
That's
call
right.
something what it's not. Speak to children. It is a body part. It is not a bad word. It is a
Right.
name of a body part. And we need to use the proper names so that children learn and know that. And so when it comes to that, age appropriate, but
Right. Right.
by middle school, you need to start talking because they doing a whole lot in middle school.
Well, I
And
mean, they can come home and educate you about what's going on because teenagers and young people do talk about that.
yes, and
They're
the thing
having
is, they have wrong information sometimes.
and they have the
You
wrong
need
information. And this is where parents, it is still our responsibility to step up and to talk with our children, to love our children, to help our children, informing your kids, educating your kids. And there is a fear, not to put a fear of God in your children, but there is something where we must advise our children about the rights and the wrongs
to.
and to learn to practice some form of abstinence. I mean, that's the best way. I know at my church, and I'm a member of Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, we have a lot of young people that have joined the church. And we also have a lot of young kids that are active, probably sexually. They don't want to talk about condoms per se, but what word do you use when you're trying to educate your children at a church? And we must find a degree of honesty with our kids, even in a Christian based environment, to let them know that abstinence is the number one way to protect yourself from catching anything or getting pregnant. But also, if you are sexually active, you must protect yourself.
I agree. And it is about that protection. And that's a tricky one. You're right. In the church community, we don't want to say that, but the reality is, kids are active and more so today than ever before. And
Absolutely.
I do agree that just saying you should use a condom doesn't mean you're getting ready to go out and have sex, you
Right.
know. But it is saying that if you are, this is something you should know. So, yes, in terms of just that educational piece, we do have
Mhm.
to be honest and
Yes,
be
we do.
aware that this is a reality. And yes, abstinence will keep a whole lot of stuff from you. And so,
Amen.
that, kids are having sex 13, 14 years old, you're not even really mentally ready to handle all that comes with it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yes, that's important. Speaking of being mentally ready, how would you say that having HIV impacted your mental health? We know it impacted you physically, but what about your mental health in the 80s and even now?
Back in the 80s, when I moved to Houston and after my partner died in 85, I went to the Montrose Counseling Center. I was lost, I was confused, I was in a disarray of all kind of emotions. And a very good friend of mine told me about the Montrose Counseling Center. And there I went and I got involved with getting individual counseling and going to group counseling. I did their counseling for over 10 years.
Mhm.
That is what helped me because when I saw other men and women who were getting counseling, who were living with HIV, who were going on with their families or with their personal professional lives, the counseling made the difference. And that saved my mental health. That helped me from having a nervous breakdown and going crazy. And I want to encourage anyone with any kind of condition. You don't even have to be HIV, but it could be young women who are pregnant, young girls, um, people who are living with diabetes. There is some form of counseling that you can get that can help you address whatever is compounding your mind. Not that you will go crazy, but you want to get help to resolve the matter. You want to get educated, you want to get as informed as you can. The more you know about any chronic condition, and we're speaking about HIV, the better that you can be as a better person. So for me, counseling to save my mental health made the difference. I had a professional career as a flight attendant. I could not go to work and be in a disarray, 30,000 feet in the air, trying to work
Mhm.
in first class, business class, or coach flying, flying long distance flights. And I was able to maintain my conscience and my good mind by getting that counseling and being able to maintain a healthy life and learning how to live with the HIV. And I think that that's still important in this day is to teach people, educate people, inform them about the different, like for instance, medications you can get. You may not be able to afford your meds. There are groups that will pay for your medication. The state of Texas has a medication program for men and women living with HIV. I'm in that program. That helps to pay for those very expensive drugs. One
How
of
does
my
what is the name of that program? How does someone access it?
they may contact through your primary care health doctor if you have a HIV doctor. It's called the State of Texas Medication Program. And that program, I've been a part of that program for the last 15 years. They pay for all my meds, all HIV related, all heart related. Any med that I take, they pay the price for that
Wow.
med. That takes such a weight of worry and stress off me knowing that my meds will be taken care of
Mhm.
every month. And not only that, the counseling services at Montrose, if you don't have an income where you can afford to pay for them, they have free counseling. If you do have a good career or income where you can pay for your counseling, there's a sliding scale fee. So there is no excuse not to get a service because the services are available.
And that's good to hear that it's still available. Because I said, a lot of people, think of HIV as a thing of the past. But you mentioned the things that he mentioned are in Houston, Texas, the Montrose Center.
Mhm.
But that state program, and that is good to know about the medication because our medications in our country are way too expensive.
They're astronomical. I mean, they're just out of control. And of course, the pharmaceutical companies, that's a market and an entity within itself to
Mhm.
make money.
Mhm.
But Quentin Meese Hospital, the old Quentin Meese over on McGregor, well,
Mhm.
that hospital has been remodeled and the Thomas Street Clinic has moved into that hospital right there at McGregor and Scott. So it's more centrally located in the city for anyone to go there. I mean, a person living with HIV, needing mental health counseling, needing HIV care, you can go there and access a lot of services. They have social workers there, and it is a tremendous hospital to help a person.
So, for those who aren't in Houston, what I would say to you is this: Google is your friend,
Yes,
and
it
you
is.
can Google HIV clinic, help for HIV in my area, help for HIV near me.
Yes,
The program he mentioned that was the state program. You can search for that, but you can look in your area, talk to your PCP. There are still programs around.
that's
Um,
right.
and so they're there for you to access. And as he stated, there are still people who are becoming infected today. There is no reason to become infected now
There is
with
absolutely
any
no reason.
STD.
Right.
But we know that people are going to have sex and people are not going to have protected sex of any age. Because
Right.
at one point, the largest growing age group to contract HIV were seniors.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
that's been the most recent epidemic of seniors catching HIV because they are, for some reason, thinking that they're immune, that their partners are safe. And guess what? That's not always the case.
right.
unfortunately. So we must continue. That's why I talk with my neighbors. Anyone that is curious or has a question, I try to be open enough to be private with them and give them good advice and to let them know it's still important to practice safe sex practices, you know.
So it can hit any age group at any time, and that's important to know. Age doesn't care. HIV doesn't care how old you are.
That's
Um,
right.
and so we see it, and you see it still in younger people. One of the things, people, it was always just considered, well, it's just a gay man's disease. But what happens is, um, as I said, there might be a woman whose husband is dipping out, sneaking out, and he may
That's
not
right.
just be with a woman.
Right.
As they used to say, he's on the down low.
He's on the
And
down
he
low. And
comes home to his wife.
yeah,
So women get infected. It is not just a man's disease.
that's right. Well, we look at a lot of people that have practiced that have had several partners that are quote unquote straight and going from different partners and have unfortunately infected a male or a female. I mean, anyone can catch it, but it's just we have to take responsibility and be in regard to protect ourselves, you know. And using a condom is about the safest way that you can protect, or the next safest is not having sex at all. So that's abstinence, but that's not always the case, of course.
Right. Everyone's not going to take, and that's why we have to be real and talk about it. Going back just to the mental health aspect of
Hmm.
HIV, some of the things that you will see people with HIV back in the 80s and even now is depression because of
Hmm.
I just can't believe it's me, or I don't know. What can you speak to that?
Well, that's why the mental health counseling is so important. Whenever you do have a condition, and that helped to save my life, is getting counseling early on in the epidemic and going to the counseling sessions. I mean, individual counseling really did help me for years. I did that for about 4 years, seeing a counselor maybe twice a month. At one point, it was one time a week. But as I continued with that journey, my doctor was very explicit that I should be in a group setting, hear from other individuals who have the same condition that you do, and let them speak to you about what is going on in their life. And that's when I realized that my issues were not as bad as I thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I went in there and I could listen to other men and women about living with HIV, about the horror of it, about how their families had done them, and about how they had made up their mind to live and to take good care of themselves. That's what impressed upon me the importance of being in group counseling. My problems were not half as severe as some other people. My living situation was not as bad, but
Mm-hmm.
it was important to mentally still get that counseling. If you are not getting any counseling and you're under a lot of stress and duress, yeah, it can lead to a nervous breakdown. It can lead to you exploding and doing something regrettable. And that's for me, counseling just saved my life.
And another thing with this diagnosis can be a loss of self-esteem. It can be
Yes,
back in the 80s. It could be a loss of employment because
that's right.
and now, like you say, it's more normalized. However, it still has a stigma. I
It,
would think.
it has a stigma and you can still be terminated, unfortunately. They can find other reasons.
Mhm.
It's not legal to terminate you, but people can find ways. So you still have to address those issues privately. You have to address them for yourself to maintain your balance with your job, with your career. Um, Back at that day when I was HIV, I mean, when I was flying for the airlines, a lot of my friends, fellow coworkers, men, died, very, very tragic deaths because they didn't take good care of themselves. They came to work, but they weren't taking the proper meds to maintain a healthy life. And as a result, many of them did die, living with HIV and still working for the airlines.
Mm. And
So,
I want to, I guess, extrapolate this conversation to just general health and mental health. There are other chronic diseases that people have, and you've
mhm,
mentioned, over and over about the importance of taking your meds, taking care of your mental health. It's a choice to have a healthy lifestyle, and
that's
I
right.
want to say to those out here, not just with AIDS and HIV. I wanted to talk about that because people don't know it exists anymore. That's in people's minds, but
Hmm.
it goes to any chronic illness you have, be it high blood pressure,
Right,
diabetes, or just the things, even high cholesterol, things that can be within your control. If it's taking your meds, if it is eating properly,
right.
whatever it is, this same um, information, this same stance stands for
Hmm.
any type of illness you might have.
Well, this conversation goes to everyone. It goes for people with obesity. It goes for people with that are suffering with severe depression. And depression, when we're depressed, we need help. We need to find a resource that can help us come out of that depression, be it through your church, be it through religion, be it through meditation, through yoga, whatever you can find that can help you find a place to be normalized and to have peace of mind. And what's more important than peace of mind? Life in itself. When
You
you
know,
have when you have peace of mind, you have happiness and you can find joy.
yes. And so it is so important to just take care of yourself. I think that is a takeaway. We talked about it under the guise of HIV and
Right.
AIDS, but taking care of your physical and mental health. And I've talked endlessly about their link, your physical, mental, and spiritual health, even I
Hmm.
see as those three being linked. And having HIV can impact all of it. You've already spoken to how it's obviously a physical, disease, but it impacted your mental health and it can impact your spiritual well-being.
Yes, it can. It
When
can.
someone has a chronic illness, part of it could be, why me, God? And then others might turn to God or turn to spirituality because they realize, okay, I need something deeper than me. But either way, positive or negative, it can
Hmm.
impact physical, mental, and spiritual well being.
Well, all around, we have to find a way to live and to live healthy and to live with peace. And it doesn't matter if you're HIV or what disease you have. What are you doing for yourself to have quality life?
Mhm.
Quality, not inequality. If you're not happy in a situation, in a job, in an environment, we can make that personal choice to make a change. We not be financially capable of doing that, but there are resources and there are opportunities for everyone to have a better life.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today and telling your story. Telling your story puts a human face to HIV, something we don't think about. And the
Hmm.
reason I did the show, what even brought it to my mind, the 27th, 2 days ago, was National Testing Day, which
Yes, it
still
was.
exists. And it was a big deal, earlier on, but it's still there because people still are becoming infected. So it's still there. And I thought, this might be something we need to just put out there to put it on people's minds. It's still real.
Yes,
The
it is.
shame and stigma is gone, but it's real. So thank you for putting a face to it. It's like, oh, he's just a regular person. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm an everyday person. I'm a young senior or an advancing senior. I'm 72, but I'm grateful and blessed to be alive. I have a quality, wonderful life. And I'm happy where I live. I have activities that I enjoy, and I do still travel some. So I'm a very blessed individual living with HIV healthy. Yes, I'm living with
Yes.
HIV, but I'm very healthy with it.
Amazing. So my call to action um, for tonight would be this: take care of your health. We
Yeah.
talked about HIV. Know that it's real, but take care of your health, whatever your health issues may be. And remember, any of us can have any health issues. You keep living something will be an issue. It doesn't have
Absolutely.
to take you out. He's
That's
proof.
right.
From 83, he's had HIV, and that's during a time when people were dying, but he made a choice to take care of himself.
There you
He
go.
made a choice to change his lifestyle. He made a choice to also take care of the mental health aspect of his health. I
Yeah,
challenge all of us to do that. Take care of your physical health, take care of your mental health, take care of your spiritual health. Understand that no one can take care of you like you. It
that
has to
is for
start
sure.
with you. You have to say, I want to live at
There
whatever
you go.
age you are. I want to live. And how you live now impacts how you're going to live tomorrow. You know, what healthy things are you doing for yourself? So make the decision to live. If you have young people in your life, talk to them about sex in a real way,
Right.
using real terms. Don't make up anything. Your body parts are not bad words. It is a name. It is an anatomical name. Nothing bad about it. Use real
Hmm.
words. Be real. Be open. Check out your health. If you feel HIV is not your issue, but still go to your PCP. Check out your health issues. Know
Hmm.
what's going on in your body. So that's my call to action. I always end with and be an educated voter. Well, what does that have to do with this? Laws can impact your physical and mental health.
That's right.
Um, don't just worry about who's running for president. Worry about who's running for any and everything. If there's a dog catcher running in your neighborhood, you need to know about that too. Know
Absolutely.
everything because it can all impact you. So that is my call to action. I am Bronwyn Lucas, licensed professional counselor. I'm here to help you become a better you. If you find yourself in need of mental health help, reach out to me. I may not be the therapist for you. I will help you find someone who is. I do want to say that the show is going on a 2-month hiatus. I am practicing self care. And in order to practice self care, I'm taking a break from some things. I will come back in September refreshed and renewed and having taken care of my own physical health and issues that are there. So I need to do that. So I'm going to practice what I preach and take care of
Okay.
me. So I will see you as my audience in. I will see you in September. It's been great. After my 2-month hiatus, I can't wait to get back. And once again, Harold, thanks for joining us tonight and sharing your story and putting a face to HIV.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you and share. God bless you.
Thank you.